see you're interested in our space program.
Oh, yeah, that's a genuine facsimile there of the Apollo 14 insignia. That's the thing that separates the U.S. of A from the red chinks and all them other losers.
You don't think we got anything more important to do with $20 billion than to send a guy up on the moon to hit a few golf balls?
What's more important than that?
How about spending the money here on Earth to fight poverty, create a few jobs?
Oh, you sound just like my son-in-law now.
Your son-in-law's black?
No!
As of late, I have been inundated with tales of billionaires in space, and this on top of already being overwhelmed with a virtually non-stop barrage of diatribes against billionaires anyway, usually via your anti-social media, your Facebook and that sort of thing. Lamentations about how scandalous and wrong it is that over 90% of the wealth of the entire world can be consolidated into the hands of a mere handful of these mega billionaires. And how if these billionaires would only share a fragment of their vast wealth with the entire populace, then absolutely everyone could walk around feeling like a millionaire. It is the point and purpose of this editorial to address both this question and the attendant proposition. But before we get to the segment, which I think you're going to like, we must first do the homework and the legwork of the portion which I don't think you're going to like at all. Since we're already dealing with outer space anyway, with spaceships and the stars and the like, why don't we borrow from science fiction for the next few minutes? You remember that program, Star Trek? You remember the science officer on board the Starship Enterprise, Mr. Spock, the Vulcan who only dealt in cold, hard facts, in immutable, calculated logic. I want you to imagine explaining your rationalizations to Mr. Spock. Rationalizations that, as I say, we see in abundance via your toilet of Facebook. To wit, you're a billionaire, I'm not. You're rich, I'm not. You've got money and I don't. You need to give me your money. You have to give me your money. You must give me your money. You owe me your money. Gimme, now. I want you to imagine explaining that to Mr. Spock. You know damn well what his response is going to be. Well, the money in question, was it not in fact earned by the billionaire in question? Is it not in fact his money? Earned? More like he stole it. I mean, he's practically a modern-day robber baron. And the government lets him get away with murder via tax cuts and leeways and all kinds of things like that. But yes, technically, legally on paper, yeah, he earned it. It's his. Well, the bank account in which this money is stored, in whose name does that account appear? Well, again, technically, legally, on paper, it's in his name, it's his money. Well, in evaluating these facts as they present themselves, it is therefore logical to conclude that he has in fact earned this money, and that this money belongs to him. He is not beholden to you in any way. It is his money to do with as he sees fit. He does not owe you any part of his wealth. Now, we know that's what he would say, but those of you who are intelligent and patient enough to take this conversation to the next strata of logic would no doubt go on to incite the concepts of ethics, scruples, moral obligation, concepts with which Mr. Spock is also not unfamiliar. Of course, there are a multitude of variations of this precedent in your culture alone. To borrow from a colloquialism, it would amount to sharing the wealth. It would in essence be taking care of one's fellow man. Viewed in the light of these facts, it is therefore logical to conclude that there is a moral obligation imposed upon the wealthy to share a portion of said wealth with those who are less fortunate than him. You see, he agrees with you, and I agree with him. And we all agree with each other. We're all on the same page. And now we're ready to move on to that proposition. But before we do, a small footnote. These protestations that I sometimes have the misfortune to see via Facebook and other mediums, you come off as very peevish, very petulant, very petty, very childish, like a bunch of crybabies to whom the world owes everything. Work on that, huh? It's all about how you phrase what you truly need to see happen, boys and girls. It's all about how you go about phrasing it. Now, I don't claim to be the person who came up with this concept. Matter of fact, I think it goes back to the very beginning. However, I can tell you that I have been ruminating on it a lot lately, well before the airing of a series of television commercials which you may well have seen, commercials which depict a concept which is comparable, it is in tandem, it is in very many ways similar, a similar school of thought to what I am advocating herein.
Go all electric faster. I dare you.
Könnt ihr die Umwelt weniger belasten?
Proteggermi agua!
Mi state facendo preoccupare per i miei nipoti. E neanche ho figli.
I'm only 6. You figure it out. What's it gonna take for you to do something? Yeah.
What are you waiting for? Climate change affects all
Where
of
am I
us.
gonna live if you mess up the planet? Do it, Rock-Sking.
This is your chance to do something good.
Do you even care?
Now, as much as I dislike sanctimonious, precocious, obnoxious children, and that cannot be overstated, they do have the right idea. And it is, again, in tandem, comparable to the proposition which I have for all of you and for those mega billionaires. But before we get to that proposition, let's take a moment and consider a prevailing question. What in the hell is wrong with these billionaires? Sadly, the Horatio Alger stories of making one's fortune seem to be consigned to yesteryear. There do not appear to be any more rags to riches billionaires walking around. The only two who come to mind are the late T. Boone Pickens and the late H. Ross Perot, who, if you had any sense, you would have elected to the presidency back when you had a chance. Jackasses. Apart from them, the current batch, the modern day variety, they're all a whole new breed. They were born with silver trust funds in their mouths. They were born to wealth. They've never tasted hunger. They've never tasted poverty. They've never tasted a pick and a shovel. That recent White House incumbent fraud was an example of this ilk. No. All of these modern-day contemporary billionaires, they all have these same shallow, disqualifying traits in common. But they also share one other variable. Ego. Massive ego. Vainglorious, megalomaniacal delusions of grandeur. The arrogance, the hubris, the conceit of the wealthy. Ego. with a competitive edge. And that, boys and girls, punks and skins, can be exploited. Oversimplified, imagine it if you will. Step right up, mega billionaires. Who's it gonna be? Which one of you is it gonna be? Who is gonna be the one that goes down in history as having saved the world? Who is going to have that as their lasting legacy? Who is going to harness their wealth and channel it into the goodwill of the planet, of the ecology, of the people, and thereby be the humanitarian for posterity, infinitely and eternally to recognize? Which one of you is it going to be? You'll have more pictures on the wall and more statues erected to you than the late Joe Stalin. Which of you is it going to be? Who will be remembered in time immemorial as the billionaire philanthropist, humanitarian par excellence, the ultimate in sheer benevolence? Your name will resound from hymnals to history books. Which one of you is it going to be? It's all in how you state your case, boys and girls. You have to give them an incentive. And if you succeed in doing this, then this makes you the con man, the huckster, the shyster, the hustler. And it makes the mega billionaires the mark, the dupe, the sucker, the chump. It's a win-win proposal, boys and girls.